Hey guys, welcome to another in-depth practical guide. And this time we're talking about freelancing as a web developer. And this is a topic that I've dealt with a lot. When I first started learning web development, I wasn't really in a great place in life. I had gotten into drugs and it drove me down the wrong path and led me into legal troubles. So I had a record and I was having trouble finding a job once I learned how to code. So my solution was to kind of go around everything and start my own business and start freelancing and finding my own clients. And then from there, creating my own small agency. And I eventually did find a job as a software developer, but in the end, I still went back to freelancing, to my agency, and then ultimately to teaching and content creation because I just love working for myself and being my own boss. Not everyone that learns to code wants to work for someone else, and that's really who this guide is for. So we're going to explore a path to becoming a successful freelance developer. Now, this is not the only path, but it's one that I have experience with, and I know it can work if you work it. So let's get started. Okay, so as I said, this is one path of many, and you don't have to follow it to a T. You can if it makes sense for you, but my goal is to give you kind of a template to start with, and then you can adjust it to fit your needs. So if you're freelancing, there's a lot more to think about than just learning to code, right? You in the technologies. You have to learn about how to set up your business because that's essentially what freelancing is creating your own business. So you need to come up with proposals, set pricing, contracts, and so on. You need to think about marketing, sales, customer service, and a lot more. So we're going to cover all that in this roadmap. Also, if you're serious about becoming a freelancer, I have a full course at freelancemastery.dev that I did with Kyle Prinsloo, who's a very successful freelance developer and entrepreneur and content creator. And I'll have a link to that in the description with a discount if you guys are interested. All right, so step one is gaining the skill set. And even before you do that, you should know what skills you need to learn by figuring out what type of freelancer you want to be. So I would suggest having a high-level plan and just know what you're getting into and what you're working towards. You know, there's freelancers of all types, and the type of freelancer that you're going to be will determine what you need to learn. So in my experience, these are what I consider the main types of freelancers when it comes to web development. And you may pick one of these now and stay with it, or you might progress through them as you learn more and get more experience. So first is just like a basic web developer slash web designer. And this is someone that has a good understanding of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all the fundamentals. And if that's all you know, you will be limited in the projects that you can take on, especially these days. But there are still a lot of small businesses out there that just want some kind of web presence and like a basic brochure type website. You know, it's important to mention that unless you plan on outsourcing all your design work, you will need to have a decent eye when it comes to design, when it comes to things like contrast, white space, color scale. And I mean, you don't need to be a full-out graphic designer, but you should know what looks good and what doesn't. And you can make a decent living doing this type of work. You can charge anywhere from $500 to $5,000 for a website, depending on a lot of things: the complexity, the client, you and your experience. I'd say this is the lowest paying type of freelancer, but it's also the easiest to get started with, and the projects you can usually do pretty quickly. So next is a CMS, or content management system based developer. A CMS is a graphical interface that you can install and use on your server and create custom dynamic websites. And WordPress is one of the big ones that's been around for a long time. And you might hear some people talk smack about WordPress, but those aren't people that are in business for themselves. Those are developers that plan to work at large companies. That's a completely different world. I think sometimes people don't understand that. Now, WordPress isn't your only option. We now have tools like headless content management systems and static website generators, things like that. And I'll talk more about that soon. And then you also have other no-code tools, things like Squarespace, Webflow, Shopify. And it's actually more common than you may think, where a person can be a successful freelancer and doesn't really know any type of programming language, maybe a little HTML and CSS. But I do know quite a few people that are technically millionaires from creating an agency that just creates WordPress websites or other no-code based websites. Now, they're really good at business and selling themselves, and they know how to get the client what they want, but they're not like master programmers. Now, I wouldn't recommend being I guess, a no-code freelancer, because you want to know how to customize things to your client's needs. You want to be able, even if you're doing WordPress websites, you want to be able to create your own themes and your own plugins and stuff like that. It can be really difficult to give the client what they want when you have to use pre-made scripts and plugins and so on. So next we have a full stack web developer. This is someone that can create custom web applications from scratch, and they most likely know some kind of JavaScript framework like React or Vue, as well as a backend technology like Node and Express or PHP Laravel, Python Django, and they usually know how to work with databases like Postgres or MongoDB, as well as tools like object relational mappers like Mongoose, Sequelize, Prisma, and they might know TypeScript. So basically all the modern web stuff, the stuff that you guys learn on this channel. Now, if you're a single freelancer, there's only so much work like this that you can take at that level. You only have so much time, and these projects do take a lot of time. If you outsource part of the work, that can help. I'll talk more about outsourcing later. And these projects can range anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000 plus. And I mean, you're not going to find too many large companies that are going to hire one single freelancer to build them this huge project. But you can get lucky. I mean, I would say the highest paid job that I got as a single freelancer was about 30,000, and that was for like a sport social platform. And I did outsource some of the work, but I still made a pretty good profit. And that was years into my freelancing career. That's not something that you're going to get when you first start. So lastly, we have a niche developer. That's someone that specializes in an area of web development or an industry. And maybe you're good at like e-commerce websites, or maybe you're really good at creating social platforms or 3D animation. Maybe you work with AI and machine learning APIs, or just about anything. I mean, you can charge a lot more for your services if you're a specialist. I know people that charge up into the six figures, and the technologies that you use can vary widely, so I can't really give you specifics. It could be anything really. Now, in addition to specializing in like an e-commerce or social platform type of website, you could also specialize in a certain type of client. So maybe you only work with medical professionals or lawyers or nonprofits. These jobs aren't necessarily harder, but if you're known as the person that creates successful websites for, let's say, dentists, you can charge a lot more than a basic web developer, because you're seen as an expert in the field. And this is called niching down or positioning, and it's a great way to stand out in a crowded market. All right, so let's start to look at some of the actual technologies, what you should be learning. So regardless of which type of freelancer you want to be, I would suggest you learn the basics of the web, get a good foundation in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, which are the structure, styling, and behavior of your web pages. And I'm not saying you have to get into React or be an advanced front-end developer, but know the basics and understand the DOM, the document object model, before moving to anything else. And I also think a CSS framework like Tailwind or Bootstrap can be very helpful. So to me, there's freelance-friendly technologies. So obviously, WordPress, content management systems, stuff like that, but also CSS frameworks, because they really help you move along in terms of styling. It's a lot faster than writing custom CSS. I also think a lot of the JamStack technologies, which I'll talk about in a little bit, are very freelance friendly. So static site generators, headless content management systems, things like that. Now, when it comes to design, since you're going to be a single freelancer, you don't have a design or UI, UX department that just hands you a PSD or whatever. You need to create the project top to bottom. So you need to have a good eye for design. And like I said earlier, you don't have to be a graphic designer, but you need to know what looks good and what doesn't. You need to know about contrast, white space, color scale, typography, and there's a lot of resources out there to help you with this. And I would suggest looking at sites like Dribbble and Behance to get inspiration. You can also look at like template sites. In fact, that's something I wanted to speak on as well, is pre-made templates. You can buy a template or use a free one and customize it to your client's needs, and this can save you a lot of time. Now, you can find themes like on ThemeForest, Creative Market. There's so many different markets out there where you can buy templates and themes, and people have different opinions on this. So if you ask me my opinion, I would let the client know if I planned on using any kind of pre-made theme, and I probably wouldn't use something pre-made if it were a larger project. You know, if they're paying tens of thousands of dollars, they should have a custom design and custom branding. That's my opinion. I do know some people will use something pre-made no matter what. They won't tell the client. I don't agree with that. I think that if you're going to use something that you didn't personally create, then you should mention it or you should ask them. But that's just my opinion. So WordPress is, as I said, still used a lot in the freelance world. If you're talking about software developers at Google or Facebook, you're not going to hear about WordPress. But the freelance world is more than just code. It's about business and giving the client what they want. And what they want in many cases is a nice website that they can update the content themselves. Sure, you can use Node.js or something like that to create a custom CMS, but you're not going to do that for a $500 website. If your goal is to create complex applications for specialized clients, then you probably don't need to learn WordPress. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to make some money and trying to build a portfolio, then I would suggest learning it. It's not that hard to learn, and there's a lot of resources out there that can help you. You can learn a set of plugins that you can use for most projects, and it'll save you a lot of time. Also, PHP is the language that WordPress is built on, and you don't have to be a PHP expert to use WordPress, but it can help. And you can create your own custom themes and plugins and so on. You can also use PHP for other things like creating custom APIs or custom web applications. And it's not as popular as it once was, but when you're freelancing, your main focus isn't on what's popular. It's making your clients happy and using the most efficient way to get there. And PHP is just great for rapid development. So another set of technologies that I think are really good for freelancing and is probably what I would use if I went back into freelancing is the JamStack. And that stands for JavaScript APIs and Markup. And there's a ton of technologies that fall under the JamStack umbrella. So you have headless content management systems like Strapi and Sanity.io. These work similar to WordPress, where you have a dashboard you can log into, you can, create and manage your content, but there's no front-facing website. So you can use whatever you want for that. If you want to use React or another front-end framework, you could use a static site generator like Gatsby, Astro, Next.js, Gridsome. These are all part of the Jamstack. And you could even use a no-code tool like Webflow, and you could use a combination of all these. And the point is that you have a lot of flexibility, and you can create really fast, performant websites that are secure and scalable. So if you want a solution that's a little more modern and something that has better performance than WordPress, I would suggest looking into the Jamstack. Just know that it's going to take a bit more knowledge to get started than it would with WordPress. All right, so once you have the skills to become a freelance web developer, there's some things I would suggest thinking about and doing when it comes to starting a business. And you need to decide if you're going to be a full-fledged business or an individual freelancer. And there can be certain rules and laws in place when you operate a business, certain things you have to do, and it varies by country, and if you're in the US, it varies by state. So for me, I'll just give you a little bit of my experience. When I started freelancing, I decided to make it a company. You don't have to do that. You can work under your own name, but I knew I wanted to scale my business later on, so I created Tech Guy Web Solutions. And I liked that name because I could use it as an individual. It makes sense, but I could also scale it, and it also makes sense to have multiple people working under it. And you should set up a business bank account. I think that you should keep everything separate from, your everyday checking account that you pay for dinner with. You want to have all that separate business cards, checks if needed. This will help you keep track of your expenses and just make things easier when it comes to taxes. And you can also start building business credit, which can help you get loans and other things later on. Now, when it comes to business types, I can only speak on the US. I don't know how it works in other countries. If you're in the US, you have a few options. And I also don't know the laws in every state. I'm in Massachusetts, and when I got started, I went to my city hall and I just paid $40 and got something called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. And this is if you want to operate under a different name than your own. And I went to the IRS website and got an EIN, which stands for Employer Identification Number. It's kind of like a social security number for your business. And you often need that to open a business bank account. And you can open a business name in your own name as well. So this is, I would say, the easiest thing to do. You can also register as a sole proprietorship, which is similar to a DBA. Actually, I think a DBA might be considered a sole proprietorship. You can also register your business as an LLC, which is a limited liability company. This gets a little more complicated, and you do have to pay more money, I believe, but it protects your personal assets if you get sued. You can also become an S Corp, which is what I eventually did with both Tech Guy and now Traversy Media. So this is where you take a salary from the company. So basically, I have a main business account, banking account, and every week I pay myself a salary to my personal account. Okay, my CPA set that up, and I would definitely suggest getting a CPA, getting an accountant. Don't try to do your own taxes. It can become a real mess. So you want to find a good CPA. That's some advice that I think is really, really important. There are some tax benefits to being an S Corp, which is why I did that. But again, if you're just getting started, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to just be a sole proprietor. And SBA.gov is also a great resource for starting a business in the U.S. And if you want to learn more about this, my Freelance Mastery course, we really kind of go more in depth in this in starting a business. So once you have your business set up, you need to think about branding, and this is your logo, your colors, your fonts, etc. And I'd say even if you're using your own name, it's good to have a set of colors for your website, any business cards or any other physical media, your social media accounts. If you're running under a company, you should get a logo done or make it yourself. And I'd say create a logo even if you're using your own name. You just use your initials or something. And also take some good professional pictures of yourself for social profiles and also freelance job websites, which we're going to talk about soon. And then another thing I'd suggest doing is creating a business plan. This can be a very high-level view of what you want to accomplish with your business. And it can be a few pages or it can be a few paragraphs. It's just good to have a plan to follow. So your website and portfolio are key to your success as a freelancer. It gives clients something that they can look at and prove to them that you can do the job. And if I hire someone, I want to be able to see what they're capable of. Now, if you're just starting out, I know it's tough because you don't have any past work experience, but you can show a couple of personal projects. If you don't have any, then create some. Although if you're thinking about taking on clients, you should at least have something that you've created on your own, whether it's a course project that you customized or what. In addition to your own website, you should build towards having an impressive web presence in general. And this includes social media websites, so Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn especially, even YouTube if possible. If you can create some videos either highlighting your work or teaching others, that would be a great way to get clients as well. And it also shows that you're passionate and you know what you're doing. You could write blog posts on your website. You could write articles for Medium or Dev.to. This can help with SEO and just getting your name out there. You can also answer questions on sites like Stack Overflow or Reddit. And last but not least, be sure to have a GitHub account, put some projects on there as well. If you're more on the design side, then you want to use sites like Dribbble. Just anything you've done that you're proud of, you want to put out there somehow. All right, so now that you have your business, you have your website, it's time to start taking clients or looking for clients. And your first few clients are crucial because you need some experience and you need to get some reviews and testimonials. And it can be difficult to get those first few jobs because, yes, you can sign up to all the freelancing websites, you can apply for all the projects, but you don't really have much to go on or much for them to look at. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So, at first glance, freelance websites can sometimes seem like a race to the bottom. I've heard that phrase a lot. And you have people from all over the world that can do the same job as you for next to nothing. However, I encourage you to look around on these sites, and I'll use Upwork.com as my example. That's probably where I would suggest to start. I started on Upwork back when it was called Odesk. But yeah, just look at what some of the successful freelancers are making. Some of them are making a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, just on that website. I started at like, $200 WordPress websites, and I ended up in the end building custom PHP applications for 10,000 plus. And that's one thing that you have to be okay with is waiting. If you're patient and you work hard, you deliver, you can make a lot of money. Unfortunately, a lot of people quit before they actually get to that point. But yeah, I would say start with these freelance websites. It's definitely not the only way to get clients, and it's not even the best way. But I would say it's the way that will it'll put you in front of the most potential clients. So that's why I always recommend starting there. And it's good to just, get some clients, get some feedback and some testimonials. As far as the websites, there's Upwork, there's freelancer.com, Fiverr, TopTal, although that's a really tough one, so I wouldn't start with that. Upstack.co, guru.com. I would suggest putting most of your energy into one of them, probably Upwork, but also create a profile and apply to projects on the others as well. Now, in order to be successful on these websites, you have to stand out and you want to show that you're worth the money. And you can do this by having a well thought out title and description in your profile, a clear and professional picture, a good portfolio and display of past work history, although, I know that's tough when you're first getting started. I would suggest creating and listing some personal projects on these websites if you don't have any professional ones. You could also do some charity work or work for like a family member or a friend, and you might not be getting paid a lot or getting paid at all, but at least you're building experience and you have something to show. So some common mistakes I see are creating profiles that have too much text or too little text, or they oversell themselves, or they don't have a professional picture. I think one of the biggest mistakes is just not standing out and being too generic. Write your portfolio or your profile in your own words and voice, and be yourself. Also, make sure that you don't have any spelling and grammar mistakes. I know that sounds silly, but I've seen a lot of profiles with mistakes, and it just looks unprofessional. Now, you're going to need to set your pricing, and pricing can be tough. When you're starting out, you'll usually work for peanuts, like I said, just to get your foot in the door and get some work under your belt. So your pricing now, when you start out, is going to be very different than a year from now or 2 years from now. So don't get discouraged. And to give you an idea, my first year freelancing, I believe I made around 18,000. And the last year that I freelanced, I made around 200,000, and that was a span of about 7 or 8 years. And that's me personally. I also had two other developers on salary, so the company actually made more than that. Now, there's different pricing structures. With Upwork and sites like that, hourly can be a good option for your first few jobs because you likely don't know how much things are or how long things are going to take you. After a while, you'll get better at judging that time and you can apply for fixed pricing. But I would probably suggest starting with hourly. And there's also ongoing pricing, which is not something you'll start with. And this is when you do a project and the client basically wants you to be on call for things like updates, bugs, maintenance, maybe hosting and other services. It's definitely something you want to do when you're more established because it gives you a steady income, even if you get no new clients for a while. Now, as far as how much you charge after you're established, I go into this more in my course, but there's a formula that a lot of freelancers follow, and I would only apply this after you're somewhat established. So you're going to first figure out what you want to make per year. Let's say 100,000 per year, and you want to work 30 hours per week. So the formula would be the target income divided by the work hours per year, and that would equal your hourly rate. So you would take 100,000, which is your target income, divided by 1,560 hours, which is 30 hours a week times 52 weeks for a year, and that would equal 64. So your hourly rate would be $64. And this is something, again, you want to do after you have experience, after you have a reputation. Nobody's going to hire you with no past experience for $64 an hour. So again, what you start with now for pricing is going to be very different later on. So once you have your profile set up and your pricing figured out, it's time to start applying for jobs. And I suggest that you apply to as many jobs as you can, but make sure that they're jobs you're qualified for, and they should be ones you're also interested in. And you're going to need to send the client a proposal either through the website that you're using or through email if you're not using a freelancing website. So let's talk a little bit about proposals. This is the first chance that you have to really sell yourself. And this process is going to be different depending on if it's a job you're applying through a website like Upwork, or if it's a client from something like local outreach or a referral, something like that. So usually for clients that aren't from a freelancing site, you'll have a pre-proposal step where you can ask some questions and get some info about the project. You want to get as much information as you can, because you're not going through Upwork where there's a job listing that explains everything. So you need to get that information so you can give them a proper proposal. Now, you'll still write some kind of proposal even when you're applying on Upwork or other job websites. You should show them that you understand what they want. You want to show them that you can deliver and that you're passionate about the project. I think a lot of people miss this part. They write very generic proposals and they don't end up getting the job. And in my opinion, you should show that you care about it, you're excited to work on it. Put yourself in the shoes of the client. You would want someone that's excited to work on your project. And I've worked on both ends, and I can't tell you how many freelancers that I've hired that just didn't seem to care, didn't seem to give a crap. They just wanted the money, which, there's nothing wrong with wanting money, but you should also care about your work and what you're doing. So my advice would be to come up with a formatted template for a proposal, but then customize it for each job. Don't make it too generic. So now that we have the freelancing websites out of the way, let's look at some other ways to get clients. And these are ways that you're going to use more so after you're established a little bit. I mean, it's my opinion that you use the freelancing sites first, just because, like I said, it puts you in front of a lot of eyes. But this stuff is what's going to get you the good jobs. So local outreach is one that I had a lot of success with. You can reach out to businesses in your area. You can go to their website, see if it's outdated or if it's not mobile friendly or whatever, and then you can reach out to them and offer to update or redo their website. Now, this won't work if you're lazy about it. You don't want to have some kind of generic pitch or template. You really want to research the company and come up with something that will help them achieve a goal, whether that's to get more customers or to make their website more user-friendly. And if you're generic, it just comes off as just spammy. So put some thought into it and put yourself in the shoes of the business. So cold emails. With local outreach, you can contact them in a few ways. I would suggest going down to the business and talking with them directly. And I know a lot of us, including myself, have like social related anxiety. But this is truly the most effective way, in my opinion, and it does take some time. So you could also consider emailing businesses and pitching your services that way. But I would give the same advice, whether you're talking to them directly or you email them. Put some thought into it and offer something that you truly think would help them achieve a goal. Next is content creation. This is another really effective method that takes a while to get going, but once you do, it can be a great way to get clients. I would say start with a blog on your personal website. This shows people that you're passionate and knowledgeable, and you could also even create videos on YouTube. I know that's not for everyone, but it's something to think about. That's actually how I started this channel. At one point, this channel was Tech Guy Web Solutions, and I wanted to create both business related videos as well as tutorials and how-to guides. And I ended up liking creating tutorials a lot more than I thought. So ultimately, I switched gears. But I can't tell you how many people I still get to this day that ask me to work on projects. I could make a killing if I went back to freelancing just from my YouTube channel. I just don't have the time with the other stuff that I'm doing. So referrals and word of mouth, this is probably the best way to get clients, but it's not something you can do in the beginning. It's something you do after you're established. If you do a good job for someone, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their family, and they themselves are also going to come back to you if they need more work done. And you can also ask for referrals. You can ask your clients if they know anybody that needs your services. And this is how I got some of my biggest paying jobs. Social media, so social media and web presence, I would say, is another way to get clients. You can create a following on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. Friends and family, so as I mentioned, this is a good one for people who are just getting started out. You do some work for friends and family to get some experience, get some reviews, and you can also ask them if they know anyone that needs your services. There's also freelancing agencies that you can work with. I've never done this, but they exist. They I guess, take a cut of your pay, but they also help you get clients. So again, not something I've done before. You can list your services on directories like Yelp, and this will help people find you, when they're searching for web developers in their area. Networking, last but not least, I'd say networking at events like meetups and conferences. This is a great way to meet people and get clients. Like I said, I have pretty severe social anxiety, so this isn't something I do that much. But I know a lot of people that have had a lot of success with it. All right, so now it's time to get to work. And you may have a rough start because you're figuring everything out for the first time. And I'll tell you, my first job was it was for a dynamic art website, and I bit off a little bit more than I could chew. I think I actually made a video on this, but it ended up being a disaster, and I didn't even end up getting paid. I learned a lot from it, though, so it was worth it. And I learned to ask more questions and to make sure that I know what I'm getting into. I also learned to not take on projects that I'm not qualified for. And you have to be honest with yourself and honest with the client, and people always appreciate honesty. And your workflow will look a bit different depending on if you're using a freelance website or not. If you're using Upwork, for instance, a lot of this process will be handled through the website, including communication, proposals, and even payment. If you're working with, say, a local client, you're going to have to handle all that yourself. Now, the first thing you want to do when you get a new client, no matter how you got them, is a discovery phase. And this is where you ask the client a bunch of questions about the project. You want to know what the project is, what the deadline is, the budget. You want to get as much information as you can, as well as any assets like logos and site images or site content, any media like that. Now, when you're ready to send your proposal, you want to send a contract as well. I used a general contract for all my projects, and I just customized it where needed. You can find a lot of templates online. You can also use a service like HelloSign to get the contract signed. You want to make sure that you have a contract for every project, and this is to protect both you and the client. And you want to make sure that you're on the same page. You both know what's expected. You want to make sure that you get paid and that the client gets what they want. So on the contract, I would outline the project details, the deadline, the budget, and the payment schedule. And again, if you're using a freelance website, that will facilitate a lot of this for you. So it's also up to you if you want to require a deposit or not. I would suggest for larger projects at least. You can also require payment in milestones, and this is where you get paid at certain points in the project. And this is good for both you and the client. You don't want to do all the work and then not get paid. You also don't want the client to pay you and then you don't do the work. So I required a 50% deposit for small projects and a 35% for larger. And then I would get the rest on delivery. Now, when it comes to billing your clients, If it's not through a freelance marketplace like Upwork, you need to use some kind of billing software, and it's up to you which one, but I would suggest something that makes it simple for clients to pay. There's a lot of options that make it as simple as just a click of a button. You could go with premium specialized invoicing, or you could use something like PayPal or Stripe. Both have invoicing capabilities. I use Stripe for everything from website payments for my courses to invoicing sponsors. It's really easy to use and it's secure, and you can also use it to create like subscription plans for ongoing work and things like that. Now, communication and updates. You never want to have your initial discovery consult and then never talk to the client again until the job's done. You want to update them regularly via email, or maybe you have a video call once a week or something like that, and make sure that they know what's going on and that they're happy with the project so far. So just let them know if you're on track to meet the deadline. It's up to you on updating them on the schedule. And I would suggest at least once a week you at least send an email explaining what you've done and what you're going to do next. If you have a dev site that's live where you're working on the project, send them a link to that as well. Maybe you want to send them a link to the GitHub so they can see the code. I just think that communication is key to a successful project. All right, so you'll be using all kinds of tools throughout your freelance journey. Of course, you have your text editor, your dev environment, any extensions that help your productivity in writing code. AI tools are extremely helpful. ChatGPT can be a lifesaver. It can also help with things like proposals and contracts. You can use AI for custom images with tools like Midjourney, Copilot for code assisting. There's so many AI tools out there that can just help you do a better and faster job. And project and task management to manage your projects is important as well. Maybe Trello or Notion.io, Todoist. There's so many programs out there. You may or may not need time tracking and billing software. If you work hourly, this can help. Code collaboration, of course, GitHub or something else like GitLab or Bitbucket. You may need a way to share code with your clients or even other developers. Or if you're outsourcing, you'll want to obviously, share code. Then you'll probably want to have some kind of deployment process. So learn a platform like Vercel, DigitalOcean, or if you're building simple websites or PHP or WordPress sites, you can use cPanel and shared hosting. So these are just some of the areas that you can utilize productivity tools in certain software. All right, so let's talk a little bit about ongoing work. So as a freelancer, you can use your current skills or gain new skills to provide ongoing work and services to your clients. And you could offer single services or combine them into a package deal. So here's just a few things that you can offer as an ongoing process or plan. So website maintenance, this is where you update the website with new content, images, etc. You can also update the design or functionality of the website. This would also include like error and bug fixes. You have ongoing tech support. This is where you're on call for any technical issues that the client has. This could be anything from a broken link to having their website be hacked. SEO and marketing. Not every freelance developer has SEO knowledge, but it seems to be a popular option. In fact, I offered SEO when I was freelancing, but I outsourced it. I didn't do it myself because I'm not an SEO professional. Hosting, this is something I did do for years. Many of the large hosting companies offer reseller hosting, so you can basically buy hosting in the form of virtual private servers or VPSs and create smaller shared accounts and sell them to your customers. And you can charge a monthly fee for this. You can also offer to manage the hosting for them. This is a great way to get recurring income. Content creation, this is where you create the content for the website. This could be blog posts, videos, images, kind of a separate thing from web development, but it is something that is possible. Social media management, you could also manage their accounts, their Facebook posts and things like that. So this stuff is definitely optional, but it's a great way to get some recurring income and utilize your clients for more than just one fixed paid project. Now, once you decide which services to offer, you can create ways to upsell your clients. You can pitch ongoing work to clients where it makes sense. You can bundle services together into packages. So let's say for $5,000, you get a website, you get hosting for a year, and you get 2 hours of maintenance per month. And I'm just throwing something out there. You offer this for a year, and then to continue, they would pay $100 per month for the hosting and the maintenance to continue. And I'm just throwing numbers out there, but you get the idea. And it could be hosting, it could be SEO, maintenance. There's just so many different combinations that you can come up with. You just have to figure out what works for you and what works for your clients. But I almost always suggest offering some kind of ongoing service. All right, so no matter how good of a developer or business person you are, there's going to be a time when you can't handle it all yourself unless you're turning down clients, which you don't want to do. So you can only work so many hours in the day. So you have to figure out a way to scale your business, and you can do this by outsourcing some of your work. So what's cool is you can use those same websites that you looked for work on to find people to work for you and your company. And you should look for the same type of profiles that you would want to have that I've already suggested. You want to make sure that they're qualified, that they have good reviews, that they're unique and stand out. One thing I can't stress enough is that cheaper is definitely not always better. In fact, it's almost always worse. People usually learn that the hard way. If you hire some person for, let's say, $5 an hour, then you're going to get work that looks like you paid $5 an hour. And obviously, you don't want to feel like you're getting ripped off. But if you find someone that specializes in what you need and they have great reviews, they have good looking projects, and they charge, $50 plus an hour, you're probably going to get a lot better work. Well, you are going to get a lot better work, and you're going to save money in the long run rather than hiring the $5 guy and trying to work with them for weeks and then having to start over and hire the $50 person anyway. So when it comes to outsourcing, to use myself as an example, I would outsource a lot of the UI and design work. It wasn't my strong suit. I'd also outsource some of the back end work. I would do, the main parts of the project and then have someone else do the rest. Another thing I did is, as I said, I outsourced my SEO. I'd offer SEO and marketing services to my client, but I would have someone else do that work, and I would just manage the project. So it's up to you on what you want to outsource, whether it's a full project or parts of a project. Just know in most cases, even if you outsource the entire thing, you're still going to be managing it and talking to the client and so on. You're not just going to say, here you go, see you later, and get paid. So another thing you can do to scale your business is hire in-house employees. And it does make things a bit more complicated. For instance, if you're registered as a sole proprietorship, you're going to have to switch to either an LLC or an S Corp, which is what I did. And you'll add them to the payroll, and taxes get a bit more complicated. And you have to think about benefits and stuff like that. But it can be worth it, right? You can take on more clients and make a lot more money and just scale your business. But it's up to you. If you just want to stick to outsourcing, then do that. Or if you're really trying to scale the business, you can hire in-house. So lastly, let's look at some other ways to scale your business. So in addition to hiring people, you can scale by expanding your workspace. You may run your business from home and you want to expand to an office space, especially if you're hiring people. You can offer new services. You can sell products or license or white label your work. An example would be you could create, let's say, a custom CMS that you use for your clients and even sell to other developers. You could offer consulting and coaching. So there's a lot of different ways to scale your business. You just have to figure out what works for you. All right, so I hope you guys like this guide. I know it was kind of long, but hopefully it helps in your freelancing journey. I have a lot more to say on the subject, and I have a course called freelancemastery.dev. If you want to check that out, I'll have the link in the description. And I just want to thank you for watching. I know it was a pretty long video, but hopefully you got something out of it, and I'll see you next time.